Hey everyone, if you enjoy my stories and want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to my channel Voice as Auntie. I'd love to have you join the community. Please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to stay up to date on my latest videos. In the quiet streets of Cambridge, where cobblestone paths wound past colleges steeped in history, the Mitchell family had always seemed to hold a gentle kind of grace. I was Catherine Mitchell, a mother in my late 50s, with a heart shaped by the gentle currents of academia, my husband, Alan, a professor of history, and our son, Ethan, a bright and restless young man in his early 30s. Ethan's wife, Sophie, had been the sunshine of our lives, a pediatric nurse with a laugh that could lift any room. But life, cruel in its own timing, had dealt us a hard hand. Sophie had been battling leukemia for months. The diagnosis had hit us like a storm, leaving us scrambling for anchors. Ethan was her primary caregiver, juggling work and hospital visits with a quiet determination that broke and rebuilt him every day. I thought I knew grief, having lost my own mother years ago, but this was different. This was watching someone you loved slip away, thread by thread. It was on a drizzly Wednesday evening, as the Cambridge streets grew dim and the River Cam flowed heavy under the bridges, that I found out. Ethan had been gone for hours, saying he needed air, a break from the hospital's sterile walls. I'd assumed he was driving aimlessly, coping in his own way. But the text message on my phone, from a friend of a friend, shattered that assumption. Ethan was seen with girls in a pub car park in Grantchester. "Is everything okay?" The words cut like a knife. My mind recoiled. How could he? Sophie was fighting for her life, and he was, what? Seeking comfort elsewhere? The anger rose swift and sharp. I didn't stop to think. I called him, my voice low but lashing. "Ethan, how could you? Sophie's dying." "What are you doing?" I spat the words, no filter, no pause. There was a silence. A long, hollow silence. Then his voice, cracked and raw. "Mum. I didn't." "You didn't what?" I pushed, the pain and fury mixing into something toxic. "You're supposed to be with her. Instead, you're driving around with girls? Do you even care?" The phone went dead. I stood there, in our dim kitchen, the walls closing in. I didn't know he'd stopped listening. I didn't know I'd destroyed him. The hours that followed were a blur. Sophie slept fitfully in her hospital bed, unaware of the storm brewing outside. I went to her, numb, trying to pray but finding only questions. How had I not seen Ethan's pain? Had I been too caught in my own grief? Ethan didn't come to the hospital that night. He didn't answer my calls. I left messages, each one an apology, but they felt hollow. The next day, he showed up at the house, his eyes red, his movements slow. We didn't speak much. He went straight to his room, the silence between us a living thing. Sophie, in her lucid moments, sensed the tension. "It's okay, Catherine," she whispered one afternoon, holding my hand weakly. "He's hurting too. We all are." Her words were a spark. I went to Ethan, found him in the garden, staring at the rain-soaked grass. I approached like one approaching a wounded animal. "Ethan, I'm sorry," I said, the words scraping out. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I was wrong." He turned, his eyes pools of pain. "You didn't understand, Mum. I couldn't breathe. I took those girls, friends from work, they didn't know what to do either. It wasn't what you think." I listened then, truly listened. Ethan spoke of the suffocation, the helplessness against Sophie's fading, the fear of losing the love of his life. He hadn't touched anyone, hadn't betrayed Sophie. He just needed someone, anyone, to not look at him like he was failing. We cried together in the rain, the Cambridge sky weeping with us. I held him, hard. I'm sorry. Forgive me. We do this together. From that shattered moment, something fragile shifted. We leaned on each other, on friends, on Sophie's own fierce spirit. Ethan went back to the hospital, holding Sophie's hand through every procedure, every hard night. I cooked meals, kept the house a little less quiet. We talked about memories, laughter, travels, the children they'd wanted. Sophie lingered for weeks more, long enough to see the autumn leaves turn on the backs, long enough to whisper forgiveness to Ethan, to me. And one night, under a starless sky, she let go. The pain was cavernous. In grief's aftermath, Ethan withdrew. I worried I'd lost him further. But slowly, with counseling, he started writing stories of Sophie, of grief, of the spaces we hadn't known how to fill. I went with him to a grief support group in town, where strangers became temporary friends. We planted a tree in our garden, a silver birch, in Sophie's memory. Its leaves rustled in the wind like whispers. A year later, Ethan met Aria, a quiet artist, at one of his writing workshops. They didn't rush. They talked about Sophie, about scars, and new beginnings. And I learned something hard, that love doesn't end with loss, it shifts. I learned to let go, not of Sophie, but of the anger. The Cambridge streets still wound past colleges, the river still flowed. But in our house, the silence turned into words, into stories. The suitcases were unpacked. The pain remained, but it grew edges, a shape we could touch without breaking. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.